The UK is bracing for a financial storm, and it's all about to come crashing down on the millions of hard-working Britons trying to save for their future. With Rachel Reeves, Labour's shadow chancellor, staying conspicuously silent, the news has now broken. Over 2 million people are about to get slammed with surprise tax bills on their savings. And it gets worse. If you're one of the many Brits planning for retirement, a potential pension tax raid could leave your savings ravaged. Before we get into the grim details, hit the like button and subscribe for more content about the issues that matter most: your money, your savings, and your future. Stay informed and ahead of the curve, because the government and opposition certainly won't warn you about what's coming next. Now, let's dive into how soaring interest rates, frozen tax-free allowances, and mounting speculation of a pension tax overhaul could leave millions of Brits worse off than ever. In a shocking turn of events, the number of people paying tax on their savings is expected to skyrocket to over 2 million this year, compared to just 650,000 a mere 3 years ago. That's a threefold increase in just a short span of time. While many are caught off guard, you might be wondering, how did we get here? It all comes down to the Personal Savings Allowance, PSA. For years, most savers didn't have to worry about paying taxes on their interest earnings. The rules allowed basic-rate taxpayers to earn up to £1,000 in interest tax-free each year, while higher-rate taxpayers could earn up to £500 tax-free. But the allowance for those in the additional rate tax bracket is a whopping zero, meaning any interest they earn is fully taxable. The problem is that the Personal Savings Allowance hasn't changed since its introduction in 2016, but a lot else has. Since then, inflation has eroded the real value of these allowances, and with interest rates rising fast, many savers are earning more interest on their savings. Normally, higher interest would be great news, but it's become a tax trap for millions who are now exceeding their tax-free limits without even realising it. To make matters worse, the Conservative government froze income tax thresholds back in 2020. This freeze was meant to last until 2027/28, and nothing has been done to reverse it. As inflation drives up wages, more and more people are being pulled into higher tax brackets, which means their savings are now fair game for the taxman. And who's stepping in to help? Not Labour's Rachel Reeves. Despite mounting pressure, Reeves has stayed silent on any plans to reverse this stealthy tax grab. The numbers paint a grim picture. The latest figures show that basic-rate taxpayers getting hit with savings taxes will soon near the 1 million mark, rising from just 500,000 in the 2022-23 tax year. Higher-rate taxpayers aren't much better off, with the number expected to triple, climbing from 158,000 to 590,000 by 2024-25. For many, it feels like a sudden, unexpected tax burden. And that's not all. Government projections also show that, despite the rise, these numbers are actually lower than initially feared. A Freedom of Information request last year suggested that as many as 2.7 million people would be hit with tax bills on their savings in the 2023/24 tax year. The current estimate of 1.9 million is still staggering, but there's a catch. Savers are scrambling to find ways to protect their money. In fact, April saw a record-breaking £11.7 billion flow into cash ISAs, marking the highest amount deposited since the accounts were introduced in 1999. It's clear that savers are desperately trying to shield their earnings from the taxman, but even so, a substantial portion of savers are still at risk of falling into the tax trap, and that's because many are simply leaving their money sitting in old savings accounts, earning little to no interest. Data from the Bank of England shows that a shocking £252 billion is sitting idle in accounts earning no interest whatsoever. That's billions of pounds that aren't generating returns, meaning savers are not only missing out on growth, but also aren't taking full advantage of their tax-free savings limits. And while this might help them avoid tax bills in the short term, it means they're losing out in the long run. This frozen income tax threshold, which was put in place by the Conservative government in 2020, has become a major issue for millions of savers across the UK. Designed as a way to quietly raise more tax revenue without hiking tax rates, the freeze has had a devastating effect on savers who are now unwittingly being pulled into higher tax brackets as their incomes rise to match inflation. With tax brackets remaining static while incomes rise, savers find themselves in a double bind. They're earning more interest, but that interest is being taxed at increasingly higher rates. The government's refusal to adjust the personal savings allowance to reflect rising inflation has made matters worse. And, as previously mentioned, Rachel Reeves has made no promise to change this should Labour win the next election. This has led to a huge increase in the number of people being hit with tax bills on their savings, many of whom didn't even realise they would be affected. Laura Souter from AJ Bell hit the nail on the head when she explained that the combination of rising interest rates, cash ISAs falling out of favour, and more people moving into higher tax brackets has created a perfect storm. Lots of people are being dragged into this tax net who weren't expecting it, she said, and it's not just individual savers feeling the pinch. The Treasury has been quick to cash in on this tax haul as rising inflation has led to more and more people paying higher taxes on their savings, even though they're simply trying to keep up with the cost of living. While the personal savings allowance grabs headlines, the growing concern among retirees is a potential pension tax raid. Yes, you heard that right. There's a looming possibility that Rachel Reeves could target Britain's pensioners next, sending even more shockwaves through the financial system. At the moment, pensioners can withdraw up to 25% of their pension pot tax-free once they reach the age of 55. That tax-free lump sum is currently capped at £268,275, but experts warn that Reeves may be considering a dramatic reduction to the limit. Some reports suggest the tax-free amount could be slashed to as little as £100,000, a move that would devastate retirees who've planned their futures around the existing rules. Pension providers like Standard Life, Royal London and AJ Bell have already seen a surge of inquiries from retirees who are rushing to withdraw their lump sums before any changes take effect. This wave of panic withdrawals has prompted warnings from industry insiders about the pressure this is placing on pension schemes. Sir Steve Webb, a former pensions minister, has raised concerns that pension providers simply don't have the resources to cope with the massive spike in demand. This surge in interest is likely putting pressure on pension schemes, Webb noted, adding that the sudden rush to withdraw pensions could create a bottleneck that leaves some retirees waiting months for their money. Tom McPhail, of pensions consultancy The Lang Cat, was even more blunt. He warned that the government had created a context of uncertainty, discomfort and fear that is driving many retirees to act rashly. Restricting the tax-free lump sum is an obvious potential tax raid, and it's an easy lever for the government to pull, McPhail said, and it's not just about lump sum withdrawals. Experts like Helen Morrissey, head of retirement analysis at Hargreaves Lansdown, are advising retirees to think carefully before pulling their pensions early. Rushing to withdraw your pension now might help you avoid a tax raid, she explained, but it could also mean locking your money away in low-interest accounts, leaving you with less retirement income in the long run. With the Institute for Fiscal Studies, IFS, calling for Reeves to raise £2 billion for the Treasury by cutting the tax-free lump sum, the future looks increasingly uncertain for retirees. Britons need to stay vigilant and take proactive steps to protect their financial futures. What are your thoughts? Is Rachel Reeves's silence on these issues deafening? Are your savings and pensions safe? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more updates on how to keep your finances secure in uncertain times.